You think you can judge me? You're all just a bunch of hypocrites.
You think you're important? You think anyone cares about your little courtroom? My father runs this entire city, and you're nothing but an old man in a robe. The words echoed through the Providence Municipal Court like a thunderclap. Every person in the courtroom froze. The court officers' hands instinctively moved toward their badges. The stenographer's fingers stopped mid-keystroke. Even Judge Frank Caprio, a man who had seen thousands of cases over his decades on the bench, looked up from his papers with an expression that mixed disbelief with deep concern. The young woman standing before him was 23-year-old Madison Brennan, daughter of Police Chief Robert Brennan. She stood with her arms crossed, designer sunglasses pushed up on her head. Her posture radiating entitlement and contempt. She had been brought in for a serious traffic violation, reckless driving that had resulted in a collision with a Vietnam veteran's vehicle at a busy intersection. The veteran, 71-year-old Thomas Morrison, sat in the back of the courtroom with his arm in a sling. His wife beside him holding his hand. Judge Caprio set down his pen slowly. The courtroom, usually filled with the nervous energy of people facing justice, had become silent as a tomb. This was not the first time someone had challenged his authority, but the blatant disrespect, the casual cruelty in her voice, struck something different. This was not desperation or fear speaking. This was pure arrogance. "Miss Brennan," Judge Caprio began, his voice steady but carrying a weight that made even the veteran court officers straighten their backs. "I need you to understand something very clearly. In this courtroom, there are no special names, no special titles, no special privileges. There is only the law, and the law applies to everyone equally." Madison rolled her eyes. "Whatever. Just tell me the fine so I can pay it and leave. I have things to do." The prosecutor, a young woman named Sarah Chun, stepped forward with the case file. "Your Honor, Ms. Brennan was driving 65 miles per hour in a 30-mile-per-hour school zone. She ran a red light and struck Mr. Morrison's vehicle. When officers arrived, she refused a breathalyzer test and became verbally abusive. She told officers, and I quote, 'Do you know who my father is? You'll all be directing traffic by tomorrow.'" A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Judge Caprio raised his hand for silence. "Ms. Brennan, do you have anything to say about these charges?" "Yeah, I have something to say. That old man pulled out in front of me. It's his fault. And I wasn't speeding. Your cops are lying because they have something against my father." Thomas Morrison shifted in his seat, pain evident on his weathered face. His wife squeezed his hand tighter. Judge Caprio saw this. He saw everything. After 40 years on the bench, he had developed an almost supernatural ability to read people, to see beyond their words into their character. "Mr. Morrison," Judge Caprio called out gently, "would you please come forward?" The elderly veteran rose slowly, his wife helping him to his feet. As he walked toward the bench, Madison huffed and pulled out her phone, scrolling through it with deliberate disrespect. Judge Caprio noted this too. "Mr. Morrison, can you tell the court what happened that day?" Thomas Morrison's voice was quiet but firm. "Your Honor, I was driving home from the VA hospital. I had just had my shoulder checked from an old service injury. I stopped at the red light at the intersection of Hope and Main. When my light turned green, I proceeded through the intersection. That's when her vehicle struck mine on the passenger side. The impact pushed my car into a streetlight pole. My wife was in the passenger seat. She suffered bruised ribs and a concussion." Madison looked up from her phone. "That's not what happened. You're lying." Judge Caprio's expression hardened. "Ms. Brennan, you will not speak unless I ask you a question. Is that understood?" "This is ridiculous. I want a different judge. Someone who isn't senile." The courtroom gasped. Even the most hardened court officers looked shocked. Judge Caprio had built his reputation not just on fairness, but on compassion. He was known for helping people, for reducing fines for struggling families, for giving second chances to those who showed genuine remorse. His show, Caught in Providence, had millions of viewers who watched him dispense justice with kindness and wisdom. He had become a symbol of what the justice system could be at its best, But compassion did not mean weakness, and disrespect for the institution of law, for the dignity of others, especially veterans who had sacrificed for their country, was something Judge Caprio would not tolerate. "Miss Chun," Judge Caprio said to the prosecutor, "what else do we have?" The prosecutor pulled out a tablet. "Your Honor, we have traffic camera footage from the intersection. It clearly shows Ms. Brennan running the red light at high speed. We also have dashcam footage from a nearby patrol car that was responding to another call. The footage is unambiguous." "I'd like to see it," Judge Caprio said. The courtroom's monitors flickered to life. Everyone watched as the footage played. It showed Madison's luxury SUV speeding through the intersection, blowing through a red light and slamming into Mr. Morrison's sedan. The force of the impact was shocking. The timestamp showed it occurred at 2:45 in the afternoon, right when school was letting out. Children could be seen on the sidewalks nearby. The courtroom watched in heavy silence. When the footage ended, Judge Caprio looked at Madison. Her face had paled slightly, but her jaw remained set in defiance. "Ms. Brennan," Judge Caprio said, his voice like steel wrapped in silk, "you endangered lives. You injured a decorated veteran and his wife. You showed no remorse. You disrespected this court, you disrespected me, and most importantly, you disrespected every principle that allows our society to function. Now, I'm going to tell you what happens next, and I want you to listen very carefully." Madison opened her mouth to speak, but Judge Caprio raised his hand. "You will be silent. You have spoken enough. The charges against you are reckless driving, running a red light, refusing a lawful breathalyzer test, and leaving the scene of an accident. Based on the evidence presented, I find you guilty on all counts. Your license is suspended for 1 year. You will pay the maximum fine of $5,000. You will complete 200 hours of community service at the VA hospital, where you will help veterans like Mr. Morrison, whom you injured. You will attend a victim impact panel where you will hear from people whose lives have been destroyed by reckless drivers. And you will write a personal letter of apology to Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, which you will read aloud in this courtroom in 30 days. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Madison's face flushed red. "You can't do this. Your father is not above the law, and neither are you. If you violate any of these conditions, you will face jail time. Do you understand?" For the first time, Madison seemed to realize the gravity of her situation. Her phone slipped from her hand and clattered on the floor. But I need my license for work. You should have thought about that before you endangered lives," Judge Caprio said. "And Ms. Brennan, one more thing. I'm going to call your father myself. Not to do you any favors, but to let him know what happened here today. Because if he truly cares about you, he needs to know that helping you avoid consequences has done you no favors. It has created someone who thinks they are above the law, and that is a dangerous thing." Madison's eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of anger, not remorse. She grabbed her phone and stormed toward the exit. But a court officer stepped in her way. "Miss Brennan," the officer said firmly, "you need to sign your sentencing papers before you leave." Judge Caprio called out to Mr. Morrison. "Mr. Morrison, please come here." The veteran approached the bench. Judge Caprio reached into his own wallet and pulled out $200. "This won't fix what happened to you, but please take your wife out to a nice dinner. You both deserve it. Thank you for your service to our country." Thomas Morrison's eyes glistened with tears. "Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for seeing us." As word of the case spread through social media and news outlets, the reaction was overwhelming. Judge Caprio received thousands of messages of support. People praised him for holding the powerful accountable, for defending the dignity of veterans, for showing that justice could not be bought or intimidated. But the most important message came 30 days later when Madison Brennan returned to the courtroom. She stood before Judge Caprio, and this time her demeanor was completely different. She was quieter, humbler. She read her apology letter to the Morrisons, and for the first time, her words carried genuine remorse. After she finished, Judge Caprio looked at her. "Miss Brennan, you have a long road ahead of you, but I hope you use this as an opportunity to become better. The law is not your enemy. It is the framework that protects us all. I hope you learn that. Madison nodded, tears streaming down her face. Real tears this time. I will, Your Honor, I promise. Judge Caprio had done what he always did. He had dispensed justice with firmness and compassion, proving once again that in his courtroom everyone was equal under the law.